Hello, my name is Bailey Pritchett. I am currently in the Education 520-700 Planning for Instruction class at WKU, and this is my presentation over research-based effective teaching strategies. So, the teaching strategy that I was assigned to is metacognitive skills, which has a 0.55 effective size. On the agenda today, we are going to talk about what is it, why is it effective, continuum of metacognition, implementation in the classroom, strategies, and exit ticket. So, what is metacognition? There is two main processes of metacognition. The first one is metacognitive knowledge, which is the awareness of strategies, tasks, and self. So, an example of metacognitive knowledge is thinking about which revision strategy works best for this task. The second main process of metacognition is metacognitive regulation, which involves planning, monitoring, and evaluating learning. An example of this is a monitor process, which is the same as ask for help if needed. So, metacognition is about thinking or learning how to learn, either way you want to think about it. And these steps of metacognition involved, the first one is get ready. So, just make a plan before learning. The second one is stay on track. So, just check yourself while you are learning. And then the third one is look back at what you have learned and over the concepts that we have went over and just see what worked and what to do better next time. The next slide is also about metacognition. It involves how we have a strong effective size for metacognition, which is 0.55, which means that we have a highly effective across all subjects within the classroom. This was developed by John H. Flavel in the 1970s. You implement with explicit instruction, modeling, reflection, and questioning, and some activities for metacognition involve think alouds, partner reflection, exit tickets, learning journals, and traffic light self-assessments. So, why is metacognition effective? So, first, it helps struggling learners close achievement gaps. So, with this, students are able to learn more and score higher on tests or on quizzes as they go through their learning process. Another way it is effective is improving learning outcome. The third way is promoting a deeper understanding of the concept, so students are able to move just beyond memorizing facts. They're able to actually understand the concepts that you teach, not just know the facts. It's able to get deeper into the brain and able to understand what is being taught. The fourth bullet point is encourages self-regulated learning, so teaches how to plan, check, and adjust your own learning. So this is more of a reflective process. And the last bullet point of effectiveness is it supports lifelong learning. So this is just like not involving not just in school, but also learning outside of school. And as students graduate high school and go into college or the workforce, they're able to take these concepts and this learning ability into the next level of their life. Students who use metacognitive strategies are able to, learning can be planned and monitored. They're able to retain knowledge longer, transfer skills across contexts. They're able to become independent learners. They know what learning strategies work best for them. And lastly, evaluating their learning process as they go along. When students understand as learners, they are able to build confidence within themselves and able to build confidence as a learner and on tests, on studying and notes. They're also able to improve their outcomes on tests and also their studying habits. Studying habits take very long time to adjust to, so this is a big outcome for students as they move forward, and also ownership of their progress. And then lastly, they are more self-aware. On the diagram in the picture, this represents the continuum of metacognition. There are 4 different steps within this process. So the first one is just the student will have no awareness and no action of what is happening. So the learner doesn't realize that they don't understand what is happening. So an example of this is, I don't know what I don't know. So they just have no recollection. They do not understand anything about what has been taught previously. The second step involves awareness this time, but it still has no action, and it also has no strategies. So the learner starts to notice gaps in their understanding. They're starting to get the hang of it, but there's still displacement and there's still gaps to progress in. An example of this is a student might say, I think I'm missing something here. So they know that they're progressing, but still not 100% yet. The third step, the student has awareness, but there's limited action, but only a few strategies. So they're progressing, which is a great thing. So the learner tries a strategy, but may not choose it well or apply it consistently. And the learner selects and uses strategies effectively, but still needs guidance. So examples of this includes, I reread the text, but I'm not sure it helped. Also, another example is, I took notes because that helps me remember. So he or she knows that notes help them remember, so they're getting along in the process, but it may not help them fully yet. The last step of the continuum of metacognition is the student is fully aware, has appropriate action, range of flexible strategies. So the student adapts and switches strategies depending on the task. For example, for this math problem, I'll draw a diagram, but for the next one, I'll make a table. So they're able to switch between tasks and able to effectively do that while also learning and obtaining the concept as well. The next slide includes implementation in the classroom. There are 6 different ways you can implement this in the classroom. The first one is direct instruction, which includes teaching strategies explicitly. So stop and summarize what you've taught, and this is involved in skills or concepts. The second one is modeling. So teachers verbalize thought processes. They think aloud while modeling and show your internal thought process. The third one is scaffolded practice, which is gradually release responsibility to students. You're not fully letting go, but you're working them into the process of remembering and to learn their concept. And then the fourth implementation is reflection routines, which includes journaling, self-questioning, and learning logs. So an example of this might be, what helped you learn today, or what would you do differently next time? The fifth implementation includes embedding reflection prompts. This could be like, what strategy did I use today, and did it work? The last one is feedback loop. So this includes students evaluate their effectiveness of their choices. So effective explanation and modeling. So the first one is just set clear learning goals. So tell students what they are learning and why it matters. Students, most of the time, they know what they're learning, but they don't know how it could help them later on in life and why are they learning this. So just setting those clear goals. This can be done in a learning target, which is on your board that includes your standards, or in the objectives that are posted as well. The second one is choose the right level of challenge. So use tasks that are doable, but require students to think about their approach. Then the last one is embed reflection opportunities. So make time for reflection activities before, during, and after each lesson. A think aloud example of effective explanation and modeling includes, while students are reading a paragraph, they may think to themselves, I notice I'm confused by this part. Let me reread. Maybe I'll summarize the sentence in my own words to check if I understand. So they're making their thought process visible and encourage students to think aloud or in pairs. If they're able to talk about it out loud, it may help them remember and help them organize it in their brain and able to identify what is happening and understand it more as they reread it. Some discourse strategies for metacognition include questioning. So there are three different types. The first one is planning. So what's your strategy before you begin? Monitoring, how do you know this step is correct? And evaluating, how would you do differently next time? The second strategy is wait time. So before you ask your students a question, give them 3 to 5 minutes to think about what you just taught them before calling on them. So they're not just jumping straight into a question. They need to retain the information. And then the third strategy is prompt reflection. So what strategy worked best for you today and why? When planning, ask yourself as the teacher, how can I help students think about what they're learning and not just what they're learning? And so the first is how students learn. Think about how they are learning what you just taught them, not just the concept. They need to understand how they are processing the information and how they're going to study, how they're going to store it into their long-term memory, and not just the concept. Like currently I'm teaching integrated science, so we're talking about earth structure, so not just about the earth and its parts in the interior of it and like the layers, but also how do they get to memorize that as well. And then lastly, so an exit ticket we could do for ourselves as teachers is think about what strategy did I use today? How well did it work? And what will I try differently next time? So after every lesson, I try to write these down and think about what I did. So briefly, just think about the last lesson you did, or if you haven't taught yet and done a lesson, think about how you could think about this after you teach a lesson. So this builds habits of daily reflection. And then for students, think about how well did I understand the lesson? Did I stay focused on the task? What did I already know that helped me with today's lesson? And what areas am I struggling with? And then lastly, I have my references for all of my presentation. Thank you.